Hey guys, there's a really cool discussion going on in the comment threads right now about whether or not Christopher Watt's wife had OCD. In my opinion, I don't think she had OCD. I don't. I think that she was basically a chameleon when it came to her friend, the friend who it looks like she stopped being friends with in January of 2017. The friend who she babysat for a couple of months, maybe 3 months, and then chose her as her maid of honor after she fired her future sister-in-law and her future husband's cousin from the bridal party. I think she was trying to pattern her behavior after her friend's life, her friend's behavior. Her friend moved to Colorado from North Carolina, right? And she was actually a nurse. And then shortly after she babysat for her new friend and her friend moved away, she announced she wanted to be a nurse too. Well, the discussion has brought out a couple of very interesting points, and I think this person may have nailed what it is that has so many of us interested in discussing this case. The person commented that when people go on and on and on about how Christopher Watt's wife was OCD, that it's rather offensive to people who actually do have OCD. And then she explained what OCD is and what it looks like. And I saw that comment and I thought, you know what? That's it. That's what it is. Because when this case first hit the social media platforms and people started to discuss it, there were people who had lupus who were saying, hey, wait a minute, I don't think she had lupus, and this is why. And then they would explain their experience with lupus and some of the limitations that they had going on because of their disease and the difficulties they faced and the struggles that they were going through. I think when somebody actually does have lupus and then they see those videos and see things like Christopher Watt's wife sitting in the sun and acting like, oh, it's nothing, she's got it, she can handle it, and then all those claims about how she was on 28 different pills a day and then she just abruptly stopped taking 28 pills a day. I think somebody who actually does have lupus gets a little bit irritated by that, don't you think? Also, the way she was diagnosed, evidently suddenly, within 1 week's time, during Lupus Awareness Month, no less, she claimed later that she was diagnosed with lupus, fibromyalgia, and Sjogren's, I think is what it was called, all within 1 week. Well, people who actually have lupus know that the lupus diagnosis is a very long and drawn out journey, and it's a difficult one, and it isn't just a quick diagnosis that you casually refer to later as you take part in lupus walks and saying, hey, if you're going to give cash to the Lupus Foundation, that you can just give it to her and she'll make sure they get it. I think people who actually struggle with lupus are offended by this case. I think people who actually struggle with fibromyalgia are offended by this case. I think people who actually do struggle with celiac disease are offended by this case. I think people who actually do have allergies and who actually do have children who do have serious allergies are offended by this case. Over and over again in our comment section, we see people saying their true life experiences with these different issues. And all those videos that we've watched on this case just don't fit. They just don't fit. And I think it's offensive. Like I said, I highly doubt that Bella and Cece had any allergies at all. I highly doubt that Bella and Cece had any breathing problems too. And I highly doubt that Bella and Cece had familial Mediterranean fever. I highly doubt that Bella and Cece ever needed to have, quote, unquote, lots of Tylenol. I highly doubt that their 12-hour or more sleeping hours had anything at all to do with Baby Wise. You know, I highly doubt that Christopher Watts' wife was ever a nurse, as we were told when this case first hit the headlines. And I highly doubt she was ever a highly successful employee of a billion-dollar company. And I even highly doubt that she was ever in the nursing program to begin with, the one that she claimed she attended for either one term or close to one term after meeting her new friend who was actually a nurse. But you know what I think might be most offensive at all, I would say of all with this case? I think is when people do their Purple Hearts and say that Christopher Watts' wife was a victim of domestic violence. Well, I shouldn't say that's most offensive of all, because if you have lupus and you're offended, then I can't imagine how offended you are. So I shouldn't say that, but I can say this about domestic violence. If Christopher Watts was telling the truth in his police interview when he said he did not murder his children, which many of us believe he was telling the truth when he said that, it also leads many of us to question whether or not Christopher Watts himself was a battered male. Not just because he said that in that police interview, because we've watched those videos, we've seen those social media posts. We've asked questions and we've dug in deeper to details of this case, and it sure as heck doesn't look like Christopher Watts' wife was any victim of domestic violence. And of course, the immediate retort to that is, oh, she was murdered. Well, murder is murder. But in my opinion, domestic violence is not a one-time act of aggression. Domestic violence, in my opinion, is a pattern of behavior in the home where one person exerts power and control over the others. And it isn't just physical either. It can be emotional control, emotional abuse. It can be psychological control, psychological abuse. It can be financial control. And if you take a good look at those videos, in my opinion, you'll see all three: emotional, psychological, and financial abuse going on. Just my opinion. I don't think she had all of those illnesses and diseases. I don't think she was OCD. I don't think she was ever in any nursing program either. I don't think the kids were sick. At least I don't think they were sick on their own. Yeah, the term is Munchausen by proxy, and I think it was going on in the case of Christopher Watts. I think it was going on leading up to the tragedy. It's called medical abuse. It's a form of child abuse, a very serious form of child abuse. And it's a form of domestic violence. Do I doubt that two children lost their lives in what should have been the safety of their own home? Oh, I don't doubt that at all. Do I doubt that two innocent children were murdered by one of their parents in what should have been the safety of their own home? No, I don't doubt that at all. But I do doubt all the crap we've been fed on this case, that's for sure.